Hi everybody, this is Grushenka Talks Films, and today I want to talk about Brute Force, the 1947 Criterion film directed by Jules Dassin. This is an incredible film noir, and apparently Jules Dassin's first turn at a crime drama. And it is so intellectual, it has real locations, real prisoners, and it deals with the brutal carceral system in the US. The US has more prisoners per capita than any nation on planet Earth. Approximately 1.9 million people in the United States is in a private or federally or local prison. So it is a really, really important film in the history of film, dealing with this subject matter in a very critical way. And you look at the conditions in Brute Force. Burt Lancaster plays Joe Collins, the leader of a resistance movement within the prison. Hume Cronyn plays a very, very corrupt subordinate to the warden, a political manipulator, a person who enjoys torturing prisoners. And there's a lot of complexity in the characters. There's the dynamics in the prison itself and the outside world interacting with this powder keg of a situation, both pre, during, and post a prison riot. And you get to see up close the mental illness, the issues within the prison. It felt very, very faithful to interviews that were conducted about what prison life was actually like. And the situation, if anything, has gotten quite a bit worse in the US. So you could see that critical eye, that very critical of the US system, of the government, of the corruption within the prison system, and the fact that they were keeping prisoners in horrific conditions. Again, though, I think of this film very often as I'm now watching the news in the US as of this recording in 2025, and realizing the conditions depicted in Brute Force are almost luxury compared to what prisoners in the US and in the extrajudicial sites that the US is using. These conditions are quite a bit more livable, humane, depicted in this film, even though when you watch Brute Force, you will understand these conditions are horrific. Just like I said, this film feels like essential viewing for our current moment. I'm recording this on May 2nd, 2025, and Brute Force is a 1947 film that is a real critical analysis of the US prison system. And it feels so important in today's context because the conditions depicted in this film have worsened over time in the US and elsewhere around the world. But the US has a particular issue with the carceral system, the prison system. There are more people imprisoned in the US than any nation on planet Earth. 1.9 million people are currently in jail, and that number is increasing by the day in the US as more and more people are taken off the streets and imprisoned. Like I said, it shares with you the dynamic within the prison. We've got Burt Lancaster playing a very restrained, interesting role as Joe Collins. You've got Hume Cronyn, who plays Captain Munsey, who is a particularly repellent character in this story. Another really fascinating recurring character in this film that deserves special recognition is Sir Lancelot playing Calypso, who often will sing a Caribbean calypso song about what's going on in the prison itself, and it plays almost the role of exposition in a really, really fascinating way. And it shows what the dynamics that build up over time within a situation where food is scarce, there's crowding in the facility, there are mental illness issues, there are sociopathy and psychopathy most often found in the prison administration. There's ineptitude at the highest levels. And it's also showing that dynamic between how people view prisoners in the US and how the prison riot that happens within this film is encountered by people in the public, by the media, and how everyone is complicit in these dehumanizing and inhumane conditions in these prisons. Like I said, this film feels like essential viewing, and Jules Dassin does a really good job of weaving in reality, using prisoners themselves, using real locations to tell this story. And it feels, again, like they did interviews. They really listened to people about what those conditions were. And you can see how, when you put people in a position where there is no way out but rioting and violence, how that will occur. And again, treating people as inhumanely as animals will result in the worst possible outcomes. Director Jules Dassin, like I said, was the director. We've got Mark Hellinger as the producer, and a screenplay by Richard Brooks. And again, this is cinema veritas at its best, with a really gritty look at what life is like inside and behind bars. So I'm going to show you the trailer. I feel like this, again, I highly recommend it for a way of understanding what happens when you refuse to give someone their human rights. And I hope everyone will watch this, again, with the lens of what is happening in the US right now with extrajudicial, illegal deportations and incarceration of American citizens, of people who are documented, and think about the context of where we are right now because of our attitudes toward people who commit crimes, often because they are poor. And you see the stories of each of the prisoners explaining how a lot of it was economically motivated. So I'm going to show you the trailer and I'll come back and give you some additional thoughts.
Here, behind the grim walls and bristling battlements of Westgate Penitentiary, live the men of our story. You would call it a prison, but to those who know, it is one big human bomb ready to explode. Here are the conflicts and hates, the desires and dreams of men who chose to live by brute force and now are chained by it. Burt Lancaster, star of The Killers, ruthless ruler of the mob inside.
Nothing's okay. It never was and it never will be. Not till we're out. You get that? Out.
Hume Cronyn, a rat in uniform.
I'm the only one who can help you.
Captain, I'm a cheap thief. I know I'm a failure, but I'm not an informer.
Charles Bickford, trusted, but not too far.
That's right, Captain. Like the book says, we always get what's coming to us. All of us.
And the women on the outside. Yvonne DiCarlo.
Promise me you won't come here again. If the police should find you.
And Blythe.
Every time you walk out that door, I'm afraid you're never coming back.
Ella Raines.
All my life, the one thing I really wanted was a fur coat.
Anita Colby. Brute Force. The stark, savage, searing drama of killers behind bars, fighting to get out to the women they can't be sure are waiting.
Now, I will say that trailer does not do this film justice. I highly recommend it. And it makes me think about where we are right now in this moment in history. This quote comes to mind a lot these days. Quote, "Anyone who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." And one of the things I believe is we have an attitude toward prisoners, people who commit crimes, that they are less than, that they are subhuman. And that's what allows for these type of carceral prison situations to continue, as depicted in Brute Force, as indicted by Jules Dassin in this film. And so we need to remember that politicians who can make us believe absurdities will help us be complicit in atrocities. And that's what's happening right now. I'm going to throw to a quick clip of the Sikot prison in El Salvador to show you how far we have come. And by how far we have come, how far we have regressed in our attitudes toward prisoners. These are the living conditions of prisoners in the Sikot prison in El Salvador. It is effectively a jungle death camp. And this is where the U.S. is sending documented residents of the U.S. and people who have committed no crime. 75% of the people who were sent to Sikot by America committed no crimes at all. So brute force is actually almost the good old days compared to where we are right now. Please watch this clip.
It's tense and uncomfortable. But here, officials say comfort isn't meant to exist.
There's no mattresses, there's no sheets. You've got a toilet over here for them to go to the bathroom. You've got this basin here that they use to bathe themselves. And then you can see there's a barrel of water that they can drink from. And he says there's always somebody standing here in front of the cells. And then if you look up, there's another corridor with more security personnel. Luz 24 horas. 24/7 light.
Another quote that I think a lot of these days is, the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. That's Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of my favorite authors. And I wonder what, in viewing this clip from Sikot, you feel about the US's degree of civilization. How you feel about El Salvador's degree of civilization in looking at those living conditions. These are human beings. And that's the message from Brute Force. These are human beings. They need food, adequate water, comfort, sleep. They need not to be tortured. They need entertainment. They need something to divert the mind because they are human beings just like all of us. And again, the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. Jules Dassin sounded the alarm. We did not heed it. We need to watch this film again and think about where we are as civilizations and where we are in the world. This is an important film, Brute Force. It has lessons for us to this day. Highly recommend you watch Brute Force and then think about how we treat prisoners. We need to do better. This has been my November Top 5 for the Criterion Movie Marathon Year in Review. Next up, December 2024, my last installment. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, click the like button, share it with a friend, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much.